Hey, everyone. I'm back. So, hi, I'm behind the camera. I know this looks a lot different than my older Facebook Live videos, but I've got a new camera set up for my Zoom art classes. So today, or this evening, I should say, I'm gonna show you a little bit about my Wednesday night class, and it's 5 to 7 p.m. on Wednesdays for April and May, and it's 8 weeks. You don't have to sign up for all 8 weeks, but you will get all 8 weeks of videos if you do sign up, even if you just want to come for a month. So that's a bonus. Hi everyone. I don't know, it's going to be hard for me to check to see who's here, although I think I figured out I can watch through Facebook. So let me try that. So I'm using my phone. I'll just have to mute it so that I'm not hearing myself talk twice. So let's see. Can I see? Yep, I can see. So now I can see if you come on. That's kind of cool. Let's see. Here we go. Yep. So it's a little delayed, but that's okay. So today, if you want to join me, you can grab your watercolors. I'll show you my little set here that I have. It's a travel set. So just grab your watercolors if you want to play with me, and also grab your colored pencils like we did the other night, and we can play. So the class is about elements of art, and I actually wanted to go over that a little bit with you all. Wow. So the ingredients to art are, and I will write them down so that you can actually see. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. So they are line, shape, color, form, texture, whoops, value, and space. I think that's all of them, but you know, there's actually, depending on who you ask, there could be 7 or 8 or 10 elements of art. So these are the elements of art, and these are our ingredients that we make art out of. And let's see, what else do I have here? I have my cute little tool. I was so excited to find a little protractor and ruler all in one. It's just adorable. And I have my circle maker, which you do not have to have today. You can just go grab a lid from a jar, or your water jar that you're gonna have with you today. To make a circle, you can grab a spice jar, anything that makes a circle. Even a roll of tape will make a circle. I can even kind of play with this a little bit. Your journal or your watercolor paper. So this is a watercolor paper journal. And a pencil and an eraser if you would like. So I like to use my fancy technical pencil. And I don't know where my eraser is, but I don't think I'm gonna need it today. And a pencil sharpener. So those are everything, that's everything that I'm gonna use today. and with you for the next half hour or so. I was gonna do it yesterday, but I totally forgot. So I'm gonna try to do it today. I did it tonight. I will try to do it again tomorrow night. So meet me back here at 5:30 if you can't stay for tonight. And also I'm going to put this video and the one from 2 nights ago on YouTube. And actually that's already on there. So if you want to check it out, you can. Okay, so these are our elements of art that I've written down on the side, and we're just gonna take 2 of them today, or maybe we'll take 3 actually: line, shape, and color. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a little line, shape, and color. We're gonna explore that a little bit. And so you're gonna take out your whatever colored pencils you want. I've taken 3 of the primary colors out, so yellow, blue, and this is magenta, but it also represents red on the color wheel. So if you want, you can take whatever color pencils you want. Take your favorite colors, doesn't really matter. And because we're just gonna play with them. So we're not gonna make anything specific. We're just going to express ourselves using line, shape, and color. And so usually when people say to me, I can't draw, I don't know how to draw, you're probably thinking about drawing something representational, which means drawing an apple or a flower or a hand or something like that. But in my Wednesday night classes, we're gonna play a lot with these 3 elements, and we're also gonna do a little bit of experimental watercolor. So you don't really have to know how to use those things because I will lead you step by step in doing it. In fact, I think because it's an experimental watercolor class, and I know that everybody has salt in their house, or at least most people do, go grab your salt shaker, which I'm gonna do right now. And I'm gonna show you how to use salt in an experimental way. With watercolor. So grab whatever kind of salt you have. Got some fancy Himalayan pink salt. It can be fine, coarse, medium, ground, doesn't matter. And oh, I'm just realizing that that's cool. There's a highlight on my little circle tool. Okay, so the other things you're gonna need are a brush and a cup of water and a towel. And you can use a paper towel if you want. These are the 2 brushes that I'm gonna be using, and this was a piece of polymer clay that I put on here as a handle so that it wouldn't hurt my hand while I was using it, because at some point I was overusing my hand, and they recommend not using something so skinny to hold and make art with all the time, which I was doing. They recommend to make a thicker handle. So that's why that looks weird. Okay, so just take 1 color, any colored pencil in your hand, preferably sharpen it because it's much better and easier to use this way. And you're gonna take your ruler, and it can be any kind of ruler you want, and you're gonna make a line down the middle of your paper. And then you're gonna rotate your ruler, and you're gonna make another line. We're not measuring. We are not calculating, we are not doing geometry. This isn't our geometry and art class. This is just experimental watercolor, elements of art, and drawing. Then you are going to take another color and you're going to place it anywhere that you want on your paper. Now you do not have to follow me at this point. This is when I say you can veer off to the left if I go right, and you can make any shape, you can make any line you want. It's eventually going to make a shape when you connect the lines, but just focus on lines for now. And you can make it symmetrical. You can make it not symmetrical. It doesn't really matter. Just make as many lines as you want with those, with that colored pencil. And then we're gonna do the same with a third colored pencil. And then I'm going to take my circle and I'm gonna trace my circle 3 times, probably using a different color each time. So my 2 definitions of drawing, just in case you were wondering, are not to draw something representational. My 2, probably, it's not really a definition, but just a way of seeing what drawing or understanding what drawing is. One is a way of seeing things, and another one is making marks on the paper. So I'll write that down so you can remember. Drawing is, and of course, if you ask any artist, you're going to get a different answer from every single one, but I should say it's a way of learning to see, not really a way of seeing, but a way of learning to see. And making marks on, I should say, just a surface. Because it could be a piece of paper, it could be a stone, it could be a piece of fabric, a canvas. So far, we've talked about elements of art. We've picked 3 that we want to focus on. I've talked about what drawing is, and we've made some marks on the paper with 3 different colors using our ruler and our circle. Now, if you don't have a ruler and you don't have a circle maker, you can literally just freehand draw these, and they'll look different, and it's all good, okay? So now what we're going to do is we are going to take out our watercolors, and you're going to take your brush, and we're going to do 2 different techniques of watercolor at first, and then we'll do a little bit of experimenting with salt. So if you're just coming on right now, grab some salt with your watercolors, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do with it. So the first technique is called wet on wet. I'll write that down. It's when you wet the paper first and you add color to that. Okay, So for this one, you do not have to do anything really to your watercolors at this point. Just leave them there. And you're gonna take your water and you're gonna pick a shape. Oops, had a little bit of paint in there. Probably in the watercolor brush. And you're just gonna paint with the water on the shape. So you haven't taken any paint yet. This is wet on wet. Make sure your brush has water in it, and you are going to swirl it around in your color. Oops, sorry. And you're gonna put it down. And that's what it's gonna do. It's actually gonna bleed and blossom and kind of flow in the shape of the water. It's gonna flow kind of out to the shape that you made with the water. Some trouble connecting to the internet, not sure why. So if it's spotty, I apologize, not sure why. So I'm gonna take the second color of yellow that I have. So I have a cool color yellow and a warm color yellow. One has a little bit of green tint in it and one has a little bit of orange tint in it. And I'm just gonna play around and kind of put it into the wet area. If it's not wet anymore, you can just brush it on. So wet on wet is the kind of technique that you can't really do much controlling of the watercolor. You just let it happen. And clean off your brush. And so the second technique we're gonna look at, or we're gonna do, is wet on dry. And in order to do that one, so you're painting on the dry paper, we're not wetting the paper first. You have to prep a color. And you don't have to, you can go directly from your palette to the paper, but you're not gonna be able to control how dark or light your color is. So that is why I put a little bit of water in my palette, in the little mixing area of my palette. And if you don't have a mixing area, if you just have watercolors and no space to do this, grab a plate, an old plate, and you can do that on there. And this is a little dirty, so there's a little bit of blue paint in there, which is gonna... So if your palette is dirty, you're gonna end up getting that paint color mixed in with the one that you want. So you kind of have to start with a clean palette. Okay, so prepping my paint, I'm gonna choose what color I want, and I think I wanna use this color over here, this red color. So I'm gonna swirl it around, and I'm going to I'm gonna mix my paint on this side, and I'm gonna use the paint from here, not directly from there, because this will allow me to pretty much figure out what darkness the color is. And what I tell all of my watercolor students is that it's great to have a little piece of scrap paper around to check to see how much pigment is in your water, to see how dark or light the color is going to come out. So we're going to pick any shape on our image and we're going to color it in. And again, this is wet on dry, so we're not wetting the paper first. So see how it's a completely different experience? You're not dripping the color in, it's not bleeding and expanding. It is doing its own thing on the dry paper, but I'm just coloring the shape. Now, you don't have to follow me. In all of my classes, I allow my students, or pretty much not just allow, but you know, make space for my students to be able to experiment however they want. So if they want to go out of the lines and they want to just splatter paint or finger paint, I say go for it. So if you have your paints out and you came here, this is your time to really do whatever you want to do, what makes you happy. Okay, so far we've done wet on wet and wet on dry. We're gonna practice that a couple times. So we're gonna do wet on wet now with a third color. So pick any shape you want. And we're gonna try wet on wet again. We're gonna try it with a darker color because kind of hard to see the yellow of what happened when I did that. So you're painting the shape with just clean water from your water cup. And then I'm going to activate the paint and I'm going to drip it in to the water that's on my shape. And every time you go and get another color, you're going to want to clean your brush off, because otherwise your palette will turn brown, which can be really frustrating when you're painting, and your painting will probably turn brown too. So I'm going to get another color and I'm just going to drip it in there. Now, if you don't have watercolor paper, this isn't really going to work, because there's a sizing on watercolor paper that allows the paint to sit on the surface before it dyes the paper. So if you want to join me tomorrow night, just run down to the art supply store and get some watercolor paper, because tomorrow night I'm doing watercolor again. And so again, the paint wants to just kind of flow and be watercolor. It wants to do what it's going to do, and that means it's going to expand in the shape. Wherever you put the water, it's going to expand and bleed out. That's what they call it, bleeding or blossoming. So you can also do, you can also take a little bit of water on your brush and put it back in to the shape and see if that affects any of the color. That's kind of fun to do every once in a while. I call it reverse wet on wet, but that's just something I made up. Okay. And let's try wet on dry again. So now we're going to mix a color. We're going to take two colors together and mix a third one. Okay, so let's do orange. So you're going to take a little bit of water, and again, this is called prepping a color, or I refer to it as prepping a color. I'm going to prep the color that I'm going to use first before I use it. And when you mix two colors, you always want to start with the lighter color if you have a light color. So I'm going to take yellow, take a little bit of yellow and put it into my prepped color, and then I'm going to take a tiny bit of red, just a tiny bit, maybe a tiny bit more, and I'm going to make an orange color. So I'm going to take the color that I created and I'm going to put it somewhere. Doesn't have to be in any order. It can be wherever you want. But this is wet on dry. So we're not painting water down onto our paper first. We are just doing it onto the dry paper. And you can see this yellow was wet still, so a little bit of it bled into the color next to it. That's what's going to happen when you put watercolor next to wet watercolor. They just bleed into each other. So if you don't want that to happen, you have to let it dry, and you have to be very patient. Either get a hair dryer and blow dry it so that it's nice and dry, or you just have to wait until it dries. You can play with some other area of the painting while you're waiting. Okay, so Okay, so we've practiced that a couple times. Now we're gonna play with the salt. Or actually, no, we're gonna do a little bit more because once we start putting salt down, it's really hard to play with the other shapes because the salt gets everywhere. So let's just mix some more colors. Again, we're working with line, shape, and color. So let's do a green. Let's mix a green. So I have a little bit of color here that looks brown from my palette, closing my palette. So just clean that off a little bit. Okay, so in order to mix a green, we're gonna take some yellow and we're gonna put it in our prepped color. And you'll see if you put more pigment into the water, you're gonna get a more saturated color. If you put less pigment in, you're gonna get a really light saturation, which means you'll barely see the color because the water will actually kind of overtake it. So, and then we're gonna take a little bit of blue, just a tiny bit, and we're gonna mix that in and we're gonna make it green. And you can keep going and mix whatever shade green you want. Maybe like a mid-green. And you can put it down anywhere on your again, this is wet on dry. And let's do one more. We'll do a purple because I have red over here. All I need to do is add, I'm gonna add a tiny bit more red, but all we have to do is add some blue to that to get our purple. And remember, always clean your brush off before you put it into the color. Okay, so I made a purple. And pick any shape you want to put your purple in. You can even start to paint in the backgrounds, wherever you want to put your purple. So this is what my classes are like. If you've been wondering what an art Zoom class is like, it's very much like this. Everybody's painting, and I'm usually telling stories or talking about color or technique or leading everybody step by step in the process that we're exploring. Okay, so if you're curious as to what happens when you mix all three, okay, so here's a little color theory for you, even though you didn't ask. We used yellow, red, and blue in the beginning, and then we did orange, green, and purple. So red, yellow, and blue are primary colors. Those are the first colors on the color wheel that you can't mix with any other colors to make those colors. So you can't mix a red. You can mix a shade of red or a tint of red or a value of red. You can mix all of those things that belong to the red category, but you have to buy red paint. You can't mix that. You could actually make it from natural ingredients like fruits and veggies and earth, but as far as going and having a watercolor palette and having watercolor in here, you have to purchase a color of red. And so those are our primary colors that you can't mix. Our secondary colors are the orange, green, and purple, which you can mix. So you can use the primary colors and you can mix those. So if you're curious about what happens when you mix all three secondary colors together, let's see. So we'll start maybe in the orange container. We'll take our green and we're gonna transfer it into the orange and we're gonna mix it up. Take more, just keep mixing it. So you get almost a brown or maybe a brownish green. And then I'm gonna take the purple and mix it in there. And let's see what color we get. Yep, brown. So if you've never seen that before, it's very magical. But you can make all different shades of brown and different styles of brown by using the 3 primary colors mixed together or the 3 secondary colors mixed together. So that's kind of cool. Okay. So this is when, you know, if you want to experiment a little bit more and you want to play around with coloring in your, you know, maybe adding more designs to your shapes. So this would be kind of a decorative line pattern to add to your shapes. So if you want to add some swirls or spirals. These are symbols, and they're actually shapes if you close them. There's circles with spirals in them. If you keep them open, it's just line. You can play around with making some abstract marks on your paper with another color. You can even maybe make a pattern of stripes. So again, the sky's the limit, because in this class that I'm teaching on Wednesdays, it's going to be all about just the elemental art, elements of art, and the ingredients of art, right? And how do we mix them together? So I just wanted to share that with you. So if we want, let's see, let's try some salt. Okay. So I don't know who figured this out, but someone figured out that when you mix salt and color together, watercolor together, you get this really cool effect. And so we're going to pick 3 of our shapes, and we're going to mix color in there, paint color into those shapes, and we're going to sprinkle some salt in there, okay? And so first you have to put the color down. So whatever color you want to create, let's do one at a time, because I know that I can move a little bit faster than everybody else, but I don't want to. So just pick a color that you want to work with, and I am going to use an indigo. So it's blue and a tiny bit of red. And I'm going to put it down, make a nice dark color, because that will allow the salt to really absorb it and make a really cool effect. So we did the wet on dry there, and we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of salt on here. My studio table always gets so messy when I do these experimental art classes. So you're just going to take as if you were cooking, and you can put it into the watercolor. And we're going to do this with another shape. So mix another color, whatever color you want. And I'm going to mix another maybe reddish blue. Maybe like a wine color. So red with a tiny bit of blue in it. And just onto the dry paper. And you're going to want to take a little bit of the salt and sprinkle it on. And you're going to see a different effect if you have thicker salt than me. So whatever it does, however it turns out is fine. And one more color. And I'm going to take this red over here. And I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. So a lot of times in my watercolor class, I will give my students a couple of demonstrations and the option for them to follow me and do them with me. And then a lot of times at the end in some of the classes, depending on which class you're going to take, you have time to play. Okay, so I'm going to play around and color in some of these shapes. So this would be the time that you can just go and do your own thing, play around, experiment a little bit. So press hard with your colored pencil or light just to see what different effects you can get with your colored pencil. So there I pressed really light. Here I'm going to press really hard. So you can get two different values, a light value and a darker value of the pencil. You can also play around with mixing colors with your colored pencil. So put one layer of one color down, put yellow there, and I'm taking my blue and I'm putting a layer of blue on top. And I'm gonna take yellow again and do a yellow layer. So you can actually make a color, you can make a color green with yellow and blue colored pencils. I'll do that again, but I'll put less blue in there so you can see that you can make a variation of colors. You can take your, let's see. This is just taking my magenta colored pencil and my blue colored pencil and making a purple with layers of colored pencil. Taking my yellow, maybe even taking a little bit of blue. If you want, you can see me create brown with just my colored pencils. Can start with blue, add red, and then add yellow. Maybe add a little bit more red. you can make brown with just your colored pencils. And you'll see the difference between the store-bought brown, which is just this color right here. Comes with two colors of brown, two hues of brown, a dark chocolate brown and a reddish, orangish kind of brick color or burnt sienna color. So here is a nice dark brown that you can buy in the store. And I'm going to put a little bit of salt on that and see if anything happens, because I'm using a lot of paint there. So you'll see the difference between that is a lot of paint and almost no water. It's just enough water to actually make it into paint. So I'll put a little bit of salt there. And I'm just going to finish playing with my three circles. I'm going to go right on top of that, the swirls, because this is mixed media now. We have our colored pencil with the watercolor on top. The colored pencil acts a little bit as a resist because it has some wax in it. Kind of creates a cool technique. Do that on this side too. Right on top of the colored pencil. So experiment a little bit with putting a lot of pigment into your water and a little bit of pigment and see if you can get different values of colors. That's kind of fun to do. Oops. You can do 2 layers of watercolor on top of each other too, like I just did. Let's see. So we did red, we did orange, green, and purple to create brown. Let's try red, yellow. Let's try a red, yellow, and blue brown to make a brown. So red and yellow make orange, and blue will make a brown. I always tell my students that mixing brown is kind of like making a pasta sauce, because if you add too much yellow, then you have to put more blue in. If you add too much blue, you have to put more red in. Kind of like garlic, onions, and salt and pepper. So it's fun. At least I think it's fun. So, okay, 3 more shapes, and I'm done. And it might be dry enough for you to see what the salt does. But I also might have to use I'm gonna cheat and use a little turquoise green over here. maybe I can show you, I might have to blow dry it in order to show you the effect of the salt. So let's see what happens. Again, I'm not really looking to create something that I'm thinking about and need an exact finished product of. I'm really just playing with my colors, playing with line, playing with shape, playing with salt to do the experimental part of the class. I'm not really super concerned about what it's going to look like. And that's hard to do for some people, you know. Everybody kind of has this idea that every artist goes into a drawing knowing exactly how the end result is going to look, but that's not true. Not true for everybody. Okay, so unfortunately, I cannot mute on Facebook Live that I know of, so you're just gonna have to bear with me and listen to my blow dryer. So I'm going to get rid of the salt, and it's probably not a great idea to do at this point because it's not totally dry, but I think I might be able to dry it. You're probably gonna see the salt go everywhere, but it doesn't really matter. Just joining me on Facebook Live and thinking, why is someone using a blow dryer on Facebook Live? Probably haven't seen that yet. Well, you probably have if you've watched makeup videos and hair videos, but okay, so you're gonna take your finger and you're gonna rub the rest of the salt off. It's probably much better to do without the blow dryer. Just let it dry, even if you have to set it aside and let it dry overnight, because sometimes the salt sticks. Okay, this is the messy part where you have to get the salt off. Let's see what happened to it. Okay, so I'll give you a little close-up. I don't know if you can see this, but it's very cool. Just shining my light on it so you can see it. So it makes this really cool night sky effect. And I guess depending on how you put the pigment down and how long the salt sat there and how big the salt pieces are, you're gonna get a different effect every time, but it's really cool. And it's a nice non-traditional way to experiment with watercolor without having to depict something like a scene or something. But you can also use it in scenes where you want this kind of texture. So I hope you had fun with me. I'm gonna go and hope you come and check out my classes. They're Wednesday evenings from 5 to 7 p.m. And that's just for the line, shape, color, form, the experimental watercolor and drawing class. Oh, that's my alarm. Hold on a second. So it's almost an hour. Yes, my Wednesday night watercolor classes in April and May, from the beginning of April, which is this coming week, and all the way to the end of May. And if you can't come every week, it's okay. You'll get a video like this, step-by-step process in showing you how to do the method or techniques that we were working on that evening. So you can go at your own pace, and if you can make it live, great, that's awesome. And it's by donation. So I hope to see you. I have other classes. There's Monday nights are journaling with mixed media, Friday nights are watercolor, and we will be doing flora and fauna for 8 weeks. And then I'm sorry, I switched that. Friday nights are going to be watercolor and geometry, and our Saturday afternoon class from 2 to 4 Pacific time is going to be flora and fauna watercolor. So thank you for joining me. Thanks for leaving a little heart. Hope you are all well and enjoying spring, and sending you off with lots of love. Thanks for joining.